Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our another live session on our GETI Live Talk Forum. And I am your host, Preena Arora, with another session of hashtag Disruptive Education Movement series. GETI Live Talk Forum is an initiative by Global Education and Training Institute, as you all know, and we are doing this under the guidance of our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi, with the sole vision to transform education by sharing ideas for change. And we at GETI are committed to teachers' training, professional development, to facilitate learning, teaching, and, as I said, sharing wonderful ideas with the world. Well, this unique global movement, that is the hashtag Disruptive Education Movement, brings education leaders from around the globe to deliberate and discuss. So, as promised, I am back with another eminent speaker with us, Ms. Anuradha Kumari, who is a research scholar at Abida Inamdar Senior College in Pune, Maharashtra. Well, she is a research scholar, as I said, pursuing her PhD in English from Savitribai Phule University, and also a blogger who we have with us today. Well, Ms. Anuradha got her diploma for participating in Expo International Sports Meet for World Peace in Lucknow, and also volunteered in the 15th International Conference on Towards Praxis, Literature, Society, and Politics. And today she's here with us to talk on the gender roles. The gender roles aren't gender requirements. Well, sounds interesting. So without much ado, I would request ma'am to please take over the session, and a very warm welcome to you once again on this forum.
Thank you, Preena, for such informative and short introduction, I would say. I'm delighted for that. First of all, I would like to thank GETI for bringing me on such a platform, I would say, and giving me opportunity to talk on a particular, very familiar, but I would say a quite misunderstood topic for youth, not just for the youth mind, but for, I would say, in a general way. So here, before starting with my talk, I would like to thank the audience who have joined us on this live talk. And now, today, as Preena has already mentioned, that I'll be talking, and particularly today, on the topic that is gender roles aren't gender requirement. Now, as we all know that, even during this, if I come to, try to relate this particular topic, which is not very new for us, to the era where we are going through the pandemic and all, and we have faced lockdown for a quite long time. And we during this lockdown, we all must have been listening to or news and so many, I would say, reports of domestic violence, even like during this whole pandemic and the critical situation. So looking from that point of view, gender education, if I talk about, it needs to be the core element of school program, especially for youth, I would say. And teacher need to be educated on how to collaborate gender issues and how to teach gender issues, about gender issues, and especially in the rural areas where gender role and gender as in subject, it's still very critical, and it's still gender roles are very traditionally rooted in the society. So you cannot actually try, even if you try to eliminate such kind of roles, and which we see kind of shift in urban areas or in the metros. So this particular things, you have a lot of hindrance. So today I'll be talking about basically on a general note about gender roles, and throughout my talk I'll be talking about gender roles and its impact on particular sector of the society. Then I'll be looking throughout, like through my presentation, I'll be dealing with few terminology which we use, or which we should have a better understanding before, or we to get a better understanding about gender roles and what gender are, because we all these times, not only students, while I was teaching, not only students, they have very misconception about the definition that what is feminism, especially the I would say the female section of my class, they have a different, and they have variations of definition of feminism, of what gender roles are ascribed for a male or for a female, or I would say the youth, actually the students, they also have these kind of notion. So let me just, before I begin to talk in detail and in depth manner, let me just present my PPT, share my PPT, so that, just give me a moment. Okay, Prerna, just confirm me if it is visible.
Yes, it's visible. Perfect.
Okay. All right. Now, as by this time, you all are aware about the topic of the talk, that the gender roles aren't gender requirements. But now here, we all must be, somewhere or the other, one of the greatest, I would say, writer about feminist, I would say, and she has done a lot of work in the area of gender and feminism. I'm taking one of the quote from her, one of the best book, I would say, The Second Sex, that one is not born a woman, one becomes one. And it is said by Simone de Beauvoir. Now here, I would like to make a bit of change here, that one is not born a woman, one becomes one. Instead of that, one is not born a woman or a man, one becomes one. By doing different gender roles that are ascribed on them by the patriarchal society or by the society itself. So now we all come familiar with these kind of, from the beginning, from the youth age only, and we hear in our surrounding these kind of I would say the messes, or these kind of dialogues, or these kind of we come in, it is in a way, we are imbibing this thing into our daily life, like boys will be boys, girls are emotional sensitive, men do not cry, or women do. So these are kind of, I would say, uh, very much rooted. It shows that what exactly is the notion behind these messages. These are very easy, these are daily lingua, I would say, but these all hold a very in-depth meaning, or to the, to the, I would say, the thought, the psychology behind these messages are in depth rooted in the gender roles that, that are crowned by the society. And traditional gender roles, when I say gender roles crowned, I would say the traditional gender roles by the, basically by the society. So let's further move on. Now these, as I said, that these are, and the other gender stereotypes have perpetuated the notion that women are more empathetic and caring than men. Now, in modern era, we will see, and we are seeing a shift in these kind of stereotypes. The glass ceilings are breaking, but still, it's not completely, I would say, eliminated from the society, from all the sectors of society. Even if we see this stereotypes breaking, we find an educated educated section of the society, or in the urban areas. Not still, it's like, it's far beyond the rural areas, so it's still in the society. Now throughout, one thing I'll be like to create, that throughout this talk, when gender is basically, I'll be using to refer to the attitudes, feelings, and behaviors that a given culture associates with a person's biological sex. Now here, I'll be also talking about the difference, because sometimes we do misunderstand, or we just think that gender and sex are defined, or the same. They mean same, but there is a lot of difference. We'll be looking into that also. Now, when I say that it's when I mention the term sex, I'm referring to the individual's biological status. Now, when Simone de Beauvoir, she talked about that one is not born a woman, one becomes one. She was trying to focus, or I would say inform us about the formation of gender roles, and also the phenomena of gender itself as a social construct. Now we all know that if social construct means something that is coming from the society, and society means that, okay, it is, it is traditional, it has its own beliefs, it can change where, by time, if the society and the norms of the society keeps changing. So we can see that, gender, which is a social context, its notion, its meaning will change with the change in the society, with the change in the I would say, the, the thought of the society holders. Now, the experience of being a woman in the modern world is a role accompanied by societal expectations imposed on a from a very young age, I would say. Even forget about being a, young age. Let me give you an example. Like, earlier, now also, but when a child is in the womb of a mother, now, even if if you come to know the gender of your unborn child, then then there are still, some I would say families, or there are people still existing in the society. Their perception, their behavior, their thought about the, or their caring nature about the child, still not born, still not out in the world, still not out in the society, but still he or she becomes part of the society. So now, there is a change in these all attitudes about the caring. So here again, an unborn child, for be it anything, you are actually not knowing, just knowing the sex of a particular unborn child changes the attitude, changes behavior towards that particular individual. Now, as I said that, gender, sex, and patriarchy, these three terminology plays a very important role when we talk about gender, when we talk about gender roles. Because when we, gender and gender roles, sometimes, it's actually the patriarchy that has, according to its, like, I would say, a lot of things goes on, be it power play, or be it, their protection, or be it, just to keep them on up on the higher altitude, to so that they can enjoy the power and all. So these all gender roles that we are, are imposed on women and men also, or other sex, other sex also, these all are not something, which is, I would say, universal. It is was, it's actually imposed, it's actually given. It is, these are the norms which are given by the patriarchy. Now, when I say that patriarchy, it's very, in a very simple manner, we all can understand that patriarchy is just, it means the dominance of men in the social and the cultural system, be it the family, be it your office, be it any other organization, social organization. It's the male who is on the higher pedestal, or where, it's a male who has the power to take decision, and women are on this, I would say, on the inferior or subordinate role. They play the subordinate role. Now, gender, actually, it was, WHO in 2015, gave a very universal kind of definition, I would say, that it is used as the socially constructed roles, behavior, attitudes, attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. Now, here, even in this definition, we'll find something missing. If we want, there is a binary created, that is men and women, but we know that apart from these binaries, there are other sex also, there are other individual identity also that exist in the society. So where do they lie? What kind of gender roles will be implemented on them? And if any kind of gender roles will not be implemented on them, then can we not define their gender? Can we not consider that, they are part of this gender, the umbrella term, which is gender? Are we keeping them outside this boundary? So here, this was kind of a thing where, when we talk about gender, or when we talk about sex, we try to keep it in binaries. But now these binaries are being, broken. These binaries are not non-existing in the society, with a lot of, I would say, changes in the society and in the rules also. Now, sex, as I have already talked about, is the biological, and even the I would say the physiological or the psychological characteristics or that define men and women. Now, we here will be talking about some gender roles and how what different aspects of gender roles depending upon that are given by different disciplines. Now, gender roles we talk about the these are actually given or to us, I would say, on the basis of to fulfill their expectation. This is like based on different expectations or that individuals, groups or societies have of individuals based on their sex, based on each society's values and beliefs about gender. Now, as I said earlier, that society is, it keeps on changing. They will, if we cannot say that society is static. It has the nature of developing. It will develop, it will keep on changing from time to time. So now if this society's values and beliefs about gender can also change, and so will the gender roles, and we can see that shift nowadays in some areas of our society. Now, these are the product of the interaction between individuals and their environments, and they give individuals cues about what sort of behavior is believed to be appropriate of what sex. Now, here there is a term called behavior which is appropriate. Now, when I say, when we talk about what is appropriate, who will define or who will say that, okay, this particular gender role is appropriate for for a woman or for a man, for that for example. Now, this appropriate is not anywhere defined, and so this is, it's kind of, it will keep on changing. If something is appropriate for me, it might not be appropriate for you the same way. So now we can see, this is not gender roles which are crowned, which we are carrying from, which we are practicing from so many years, or from ages. It is not defined. It has the ability to change. It will keep on changing. Now, appropriate gender roles are defined according to a society's belief about differences between sexes. Now, the patriarchal discourse of the society has mythicized the conventional image of a woman. Stereotyping the feminine has allowed the subjection of women to patriarchal dominance of generation. Now, patriarchy, as I said, is one of the, I would say, the core where these all particular, gender roles, gender is actually, I would say, defined, or these are being born from that particular things, or it's impacted, not born, it's impacted. Now, when I say that, these kind of patriarchy plays a very important role in, in imbibing these gender roles in a, since, I would say, since one is not born even. And when I say patriarchy, I really don't mean, or it, just, I'm not talking about, I'm not focusing just on the male, because women play much more important role in, in nurturing patriarchy. Here I would like to, take an example from one of the most, I would say, prominent feminist writer, Bell Hooks, and she talks in one of her essay, Understanding Patriarchy, how, giving example of her own, from her own life, that how this particular patriarchy was, imbibed into her non-patriarchal family. She and one of her brother, I would say, if I they used to play these marble games, which actually, according to the patriarchal society, marble games, early also, if you some of us might remember that that was not a game that it was appropriate for female, that was not a game appropriate for a girl, that was a game which was appropriate for a male, a child, boy, they can play, but a girl cannot. So this boundaries where, or I would say, somewhere in the in our society is still imbibing. But Bell Hooks talks about that, how her mother allowed her and her brother to play marbles, and one day her father witnessed this, and he just had as he is there, he had this problem while observing that bell hooks, being a girl child, was much more better than his son, than, beat par, beat anything. So she was here breaking the gender roles that was, I would say, crowned, that she had to follow the traditional gender roles that are imbibed on a girl child, that you cannot laugh loudly, you cannot. But she was not following, or she was not behaving in any such kind of boundaries, even though she was a girl. So now here, then later on one day she was beaten, and then this particular thing was being taught to her by her mother. Once she was the one who allowed bell hooks and her son to play together marble, but now she was the one, after bell hooks got beaten up by her father for playing, um, I would say, for playing marbles and being dominating over her brother. Then mother and her grandmother were the nurturing source to make her, to teach her that what gender roles are for her. She cannot go out and play marbles. So when I said that, not just when I talk about patriarchy, I'm not talking about just men, I'm talking also about women. About, it's like, it's an I would say combined. Not, I'm not starting binaries, or I'm not just here talking patriarchy in any binary terms. I'm just taking as an collectively. So women play a very, they play a very important role in nurturing patriarchy, because still we have another role for, another gender role, stereotyped role, that mother, the women are, they are the caretaker, they are the nurturer of their children. So it's, they play a very important role unconsciously, consciously, in nurturing patriarchal role to their children's. And that's why I said, that women play a very important role. Now coming to, different perspectives of gender roles according to different disciplines, because gender role is a very, I would say, umbrella term, and we have a lot of variation of gender roles. We can we have so many variations, in fact, of gender roles in different sectors of the society, or reason it varies. Now first, I'll take on the ecological perspective on gender roles, which suggests that gender roles are created by the interactions between individuals, communities, and the environment. Be it anything. Now that is while individual people play a role in constructing gender roles, so to do the physical and the social environments within which people operate. Now the other will be the biological. Now, biological perspective on gender roles suggests that the women have a natural affinity towards the feminine gender roles, and men have a natural affinity towards masculine gender role, which are still being read. It's not proven, because some say, but the study is still not, we don't have any definite I would say result or definite study which can prove that biological. But there are some studies which show that biological perspective of gender roles, they have somewhere the gene plays very important role in the kind of behavior one has. And at a point, I agree, personally I agree, but still it's very debatable. Now the biological perspective does not, however, suggest that one role holds any inherently great values than other role. Now here again, to to keep one sector or one male up on the upper pedestal and women on the lower, and somewhere transgender in the between, is not defined by anyone, not biologically. None, scientists cannot prove that okay, genes of one particular can tell that where does your power lie, where you can stand in the society. It's all in the culture, it's all it's all prescribed on a particular gender by the society, and by all the environments in which he or she is born, or through experience or lives. Now coming to the sociological perspective towards gender roles, it suggests that that masculine and feminine roles are learned and that masculine and feminine gender roles are not necessarily connected to males and females biological traits. Sociologists study the different meanings and values that masculine and feminine gender roles hold in society. Now, as I said, that it's still not proven that gene can gene give you the I would say confined, or it is a determined kind of that, okay, one particular genetic gene of a male will perform in a certain behavior, it will behave in a certain way. So this is not I would say at some extent it's still not confined, it's still debatable by so many critique and so many feminist writer in their works. Now here sociological perspective actually talks about that it's not, it has nothing to do with the biological traits. It has nothing to a boy can love makeup, a girl can hate makeup, and these are not somewhere, it is not imbibed, none of their genes are giving this information that, okay, oh, you're a boy, I'm your gene, and let's you should hate makeup. No, you can. So these all things are it's perspective, and it's are imbibed. And Judith Butler also talks about performativity, which I'll be talking very briefly in my later slides. So it's all done, it's all you all grab these, you get into all these habits by doing it again and again. So it's nothing as it's just like learning your lesson. First time you learn and you're like, oh, I hate it, I won't learn. But has it you have to sit for your exam, so you have to keep on doing it again and again and again till the time you remember that, okay, this is what I have to again write in my paper. So gender roles are also something which you keep on doing and doing, but that doesn't define that who you are. Now when we talk about sociological perspective, then we have a feminist perspective of the gender roles too. Now when we talk about feminism or feminist perspective, there is a very misconception misunderstood notion that the term feminism, or the term the moment it comes feminism, feminist, the general idea is that, okay, it's just about the rights of the women, it's just about how women voice should be heard. But actually it's when we see about that feminist or feminism, if we just try to bifurcate the term itself, then we can see it's female plus male somewhere. I hope I'm making sense. So it's a collective, because if we talk about, it talks about the equality. Now when this these feminist writer, or this term particularly defined, it's talking about equal rights. So how can you have equal rights or equality in the society by pushing down the men or crushing their rights? No, it's equality. It's it's making your voice also heard, and but that doesn't mean the male should be pushed or crushed under your feet. It's bringing equality in the society and keeping both the voices on equal pedestal. Now according to them, they so many feminist writer, and in their work, they, according to their perspective, it is that gender roles, these are learned, they can also be unlearned. And obviously, as I gave you example of learning a chapter, learning a lesson for your test, so when you go to your higher next class, you don't remember that. Rarely any student, or even I don't remember what might have studied. It's just few chapters that you will remember. So if it has the characteristics of learning and unlearning, so you can unlearn your gender roles, and that new and different roles can be created. Now here, these are the important things which you should remember, that if you have the ability to learn something, you have the ability to undo it also. So it's like doing, redoing, and then if you do and redo in this process, you can create new roles. You can just throw away these old traditional roles, or you can just try to reinvent these traditional role while doing a bit of redo, DIYs, whatever you can say, because these are the words which are very common these days on in a lot of social, I would say, in YouTube videos I see. So here, these can be done, these can be undone, these can be created. You can have different roles, and gender roles are not simply ideas about appropriate behavior for males and females, but are also linked to the different levels of power that males and female hold in the society. And this is what I was talking when I say that, patriarchy gives you these all gender roles. It's kind of, they are crowning each individual gender with certain gender roles, that okay, you are a male, you cannot cry. You are a woman, you are allowed to cry, you should cry at to portray your emotion. But you are male, sorry, you cannot portray your emotion. And this we have heard a lot time, in movies also. Mard ko dard nahi hota. Now, why can't a male have a pain? Have you ever thought about it, that yeah, why can't a male have pain? Why can't a male cry? Or if a male boy should cry? Now, when we are talking about, these are the things which we should keep on changing. Now, when we're talking about changing, now I had a question, that what causes individuals to sense a difference between their socially assigned gender and their gender identity. Now, socially assigned gender, as we know, gender is a social defined in social context. It's a social subject, and so these gender roles are socially provided to you, they are embedded on you. So, but is this your identity? Is this my, if being a woman, I have to do certain roles to be an appropriate woman according to the society, but that, does these roles define me or define any individual identity, or be it anyone? Does it define? So what are these individual causes? Now here, in these particular, uh, to define gender identity and gender expression of any individual, few factors play a very important and eminent role, and those are genetic regulation, hormone activities, and socialization. These, I'm not here, in this talk, I'm not going in depth in these factors and how it affects, because then it will be a very long talk. But I'll be focusing on a bit of socialization, that how it plays a very important role, in defining anyone's identity or anyone's, expression. Now, if I talk about, biologically, that is the generic, I was talking, it's like, gender is a function of sex, understood, because sex is biological aspect, and meaning that the genetic regulation, hormone activities that determine our sex also influence our gender activities, gender identities or gender expressions. Now, when we talk about the socialization, this is like, a role in how a person interacts with their own gender identity, which can influence how they perceive and express their gender. Like, we might find this very familiar kind of situation where, especially in co-ed also, I had few students who were like very very, kind of not very they were not in a very inviting manner to be friend of any other sex. Okay, the opposite sex, I would say, they were very much like, they have their own boys gang and they have their own girls gang, so this kind. And so there were some gangs where it was, a mixture of both the sex. So here it's like, you have a gender identity, according to which you try to, be in that area. You don't want to break that, and you perceive these gender identity, these gender roles, kind of expressions, and all the performative which a gender is supposed to do, and understand being in that group. Now, as I was mentioning about, redoing here, Judith Butler, one of, I would say, the most prominent social theorist and a feminist writer also, she talks about gender performativity. Now, when I said gender performativity, I talk about I'm taking you back to the example which I gave you, redoing your work again and again, relearning your lessons again and again till you excel in that. So here also, it's the, in a very simple manner, you can understand that gender roles or gender performative to define a particular gender or not is something that is learned by doing it and redoing it again and again and again. So that is what, Butler also talks in her one of her work about gender performativity. Now, gender is never stable descriptor of an individual, but an individual is always doing gender. Now, what do you mean? It's sometimes it's very difficult to understand what does this mean that an individual is always doing gender. Now, gender is something which is, the role. When doing gender means you're playing that role. If you're given a role in your, like, you're in a, if a student, for example, or in the society, social institution, we all perform, we all have our own roles to play. And even in life, we have our own roles to play, and we keep on doing that. So, somewhere or the other, without understanding that what we are doing, we keep on doing the same thing again and again, and that's what exactly we can call it doing gender. Now, performing or deviating from the socially accepted performance of gender stereotypes are very difficult, I would say. And not only that, it's sometimes you find it a lot of hurdle if you want to bring change, or you want to shift from the traditional values, traditional gender roles, which has nothing to do with the kind of a person you are, with the kind of the human being you are, because you are completely different, but still you are forced to do something which you don't want. Now, when an individual gender identity does not match their socially assigned gender, the socialization they receive will often indicate to the individual that there is something wrong with their gender. So it's not wrong with the society or their thought, but it's wrong. Something is wrong with the individual, with you or with me. If I retreat, if I try to break the traditional gender norms and do something which is not my gender role. Now, and this can impact the ability to understand and express the gender identity in socially accepted ways. And there are many examples that you can come, in your face to face in your life, in your daily life, where these things are very often, you actually experience this, but you don't know why it is happening, or what is the reason, the psychology or the societal reason behind all these. Now, the internalized belief that men and women are essentially different is what makes men and women behave in ways that appear essentially different. Social constructivists would say that gender is interactional rather than individual. It is developed through social interaction, and it is never, it's not. I cannot have, in a night, I cannot build a gender role for a particular gender. It's kind of interaction between so many different aspects. As I said, there are different factors that play important and eminent role while defining or while prescribing gender roles to any gender. Now, very shortly, we'll talk about that what these gender roles are doing. Is it affecting someone in the patriarchy? And when I say in the society or in the patriarchy, I'm not here just talking about the female, or I will be here trying to leave the section of the female or the women, that how these gender roles affect them, because we are very much familiar with it. We see every day, we hear every day these oppressions of gender role on women. So here I'll be talking briefly about children and men and transgender, and what they go through because of these traditional gender norms. Now, these gender roles affect children's sense of self from a very young age. Boys receive 8 times more attention in the classroom than girls, and this is not something which it's a very general. It might be true for some areas of the society, but some basically here I took in the rural areas, which is but it's still existing in our society where we find these things. Girls receive 11% less pocket money than boys. Children classify jobs and activities as specific to boys or girls. Now here, these are some, very briefly I thought I should take, because these are some, not, and we can see change in all these gender roles also, but it's still in the society. It's not completely eliminated from the society. Now, coming to the men, that how these affect them. Now, traditional gender roles are very, it's very difficult, not just for women to play these roles, but actually for men also, because they are under a high pressure to perform, to perform their gender role, to be a man. They have to show that they're, the word that is used, machos. So it's like, what is the definition of real men? And even if they don't want to do that, they don't want to behave in a certain way, but they have to, because they are, under a high pressure, physically, emotionally strong. They have to be, and they have to be the main incomer of the, incomer of the family, or it's like, they have to be the head of the family. Why can't a woman be the head of the family? Now, many workplaces don't offer men extended parental leaves or flexible hours. Now, nowadays we are seeing that, women in IT and women in all sectors, they get their leaves, parental leaves, but in very rare situation we can see, particularly in India, that, organization give you, a kind of parental leaves to the father also. Now, men are more likely to drink too much and take unhealthy risk and engage in violence. But this is again, these all things are, again, we can, we can debate on this, we can talk on this for hours and hours, because these all are debatable. But yes, in a general notion, generally, these are the conception, these are the oppressions which they are going through because of the traditional gender roles. They are less likely to seek professional help or talk about their problems with friends or family. Now, this is one thing which personally I have experienced, that, male are like, no, I cannot share my problems with other, just close with other, because that will show, that, okay, you are not able to handle a particular situation, you are weaker. So these are the kind of notion which are enforced on them, that no, these you have to follow. Now, coming to the other sect, it's like trans genders and gender diverse people, I'm using the term here. Now, when I say trans and transgender, they have, they may feel forced to hide their gender identity while using services at school or work. Though we have laws for it, it is, but still, it's it will take time. It will take a lot of time to, bring it into practical life. Bring, it's just on the paper, but somewhere in the rural areas also, these things are very eminent. That, they have to, even the parents, they try to hide it, because, it's not normal for the society. Now, they are at greater risk of mental illness, verbal and physical abuse, and social exclusion, which is actually still, I would say, existing in our society. Now, here, in a very brief, now I basically talked about traditional gender roles, which are not defining, which are not giving, any kind of definition to the gender, to any particular individual. Now, here is a kind of shift, and I'm just trying to, with this, this slide, I'm just trying to show that how this, the role are changing, but that doesn't affect, or that is not required, or that is not giving any kind of input to the gender one belongs to. Now, this is, in northeastern families, and especially in Khasi, here I'm taking, it's like, a state in Meghalaya where women actually head the families. They hold the power, and it is the tradition that they follow is not patriarchal, not matriarchal. It is matrilineal. Okay, so here I'm not going in depth, or I'll be not talking about what matrilineal or matriarchy, or these traditions are. But here, very briefly, I'll tell you that, the youngest daughter inhibits or inherits their property. Just in patriarchy, we have the father and the son, and nowadays, yeah, we daughters also do, we have rights on the properties of our father. But there it is, the youngest daughter inherits, and children take their mother's surname, and once married, men live in their mother-in-law's house. Now, here in this particular, I was going through a few news is, and then I came to witness a case, case study, and I just saw that, there are many cases filed by the male of that particular society, of that particular region, asking for their, justice. Now, it's like, if they are staying in their mother-in-law's house, so it's just somewhere, not giving or not, they are not following the gender roles, but still they are male, they are men. So it gender role, their roles have changed. Now they are taking care, they are not the not the power holding subject of a family, but still they are what the gender is. They belong to a particular gender, and same goes for the women also. When no daughters are born to a couple, they adopt a daughter and pass their rights to property to her. But here one thing is very still in the rural areas, I would say that a lot of girl child are not, their birth are not celebrated, they are still being killed. But here a girl child is celebrated and a boy child is like somewhere, it's not kind of not happy, I won't say not happy, but that is not as much as reason for celebration as a child of a birth. Now again here we'll see the role is changing, but again it is giving if I talk about about equality, then again it's somewhere going unequal. But still here our focus is on the roles, that there is a change in the role, but that doesn't it is not changing their gender, it is not changing, impacting their gender or their gender identity. The matrilineal system should not be confused with matriarchy, as I said. Now here, as I said, the husband is still the head, you consider, but this is a place where area where, though even if in the modern world also in the 21st century also, we working women or working girl, actually still we have a kind of a pressure from the family, from the society to get married. Now but here in this particular area is a particular a section of our society, a country where they don't have a freedom, they are free from getting these kind of traditional I would say, the roles that, okay, you are a particular age and now you get married, even though you are settled or unsettled, that's up to you, but you have to get married. So they are pressure free. Women from these areas are pressure, these kind of pressures are released from them. Now, here I'll just talk about that how school plays a very important role, that what in teaching and in imbibing the correct concept of gender roles, and all in breaking this gender biasness from the very young age, because teacher, they are actually one of the nurturer, I would say, and they are the best source to teach young, to nurture the young minds, or from the beginning itself, about the correct and the concepts and how they should behave, and how they can actually modify these traditional norms, and they can break also. Now here is the process of this identity formation emerges from there are actually, and we're not these three, but there are more which play interplay of these particular process actually defines their gender roles, or defines, it helps to define their gender identity. Now one is expectation, the important one, as in earlier also in my initial talk, we say that these gender roles are the expectations of the society. Now expectation, now here it is that what exactly a particular young a particular student, a particular young mind is want to do, basically expecting or expected to do in future, to become someone would be very confused, but still they have some expectation. So now here a teacher plays a very important role to not just to give a proper understanding of and gender free understanding of what they expect and how they expect to do it. Attitudes, now attitude is something is how do you take how what kind of behavior a teacher or even a pupil actually shows toward particular sex, I would, children from a particular sex. Behavior is also the practice in the classroom, and it's very important not for just the student but also for the teacher, that how do you behave in the classroom with different sex, or here if I talk about gender, with the students from different opposite sex or from any other sex. How to behave, that your behavior will play a very important role, not only your but even the students, and because they will be learning, because teacher actually holds a very high pedestal and very high, I would say, their students learn from them. And so it is very important for a teacher to play, to be on these kind of factors, and so that they can have a better concept of their gender roles, and they can have build their identity a better, I would say. The attitude of teacher and teacher educators are important in facilitating change. Comprehensive equality training, and which is also gender included, should be introduced as for pre-service and in-service teachers. Also, methods for evaluating teachers and school performance in this area should be designed and implemented. These are the basic things which I think, and the institution should actually implement, so that a better understanding and of a gender, a better understanding of what a gender role is, a better understanding that how it has nothing to do with the gender identity or the individual's identity. So these are the few things which could be implemented. Now, here, changing attitudes of parents and peers is very crucial for changing gender stereotypes, and adult community education programs, including these involving new media, needs to be resourced in all countries to counter sex stereotype views of subject and occupations in the wider public. So these are the few, I think, methods which can be inculcated for a better, for a being, traditionally, from breaking the shackles of traditional gender roles, which people think, that, yeah, if you are a woman, that has a lot to do in gender identity for a particular gender. No, it is not, because it is changing. And if we keep working on it, there is a shift, which, and in future it can eliminate also, it can change. So there is no proportion, there is no direct relation in these two. Now, when we, it's like basically, the way a child present themselves is a direct result of societal expectations, attitudes that are placed on them from the time they are born. This is based on a notion that people have believed throughout history, and the connection of sex and gender. And yes, there is. The expectation of a child's sex characteristics are indicative of its gender. The true identity of a person reflected throughout a person. Utilizing this, it is not very difficult to see the extension from the determination of sex to the determination of gender in a binary system. This theory underlies the societal idea that the essence of a person is biologically determined, but in reality, it is an artificial and social imposition. Now, we all, by this time, it might be very clear that these gender roles, these are artificially implemented. These are societal imposition. Now, Butler also, she states that gender, or even so-called biological sex, is not essential or organic. So you can see that even the gender is not essential or organic. So forget about the gender roles. So gender roles are not important to define anyone's gender. Through assimilation of repetitive gender role play or performances, one is ascribed with femininity or masculinity. So it's all about that, what you play, what you do. It's redoing of the gender roles. And if you do some other gender roles, you will have the same gender, but it will not be, it is not helping in defining your gender. Now, those who maintain a traditional gender role orientation are likely to be influenced by the rules and rituals of the generation that came before them, by their parents and grandparents. As I said, that parents play a very important role in nurturing or in passing these gender roles, traditional gender roles. The individual is non-traditional, who are like, these days we see a lot of shift in gender roles. There is no kind of we are coming out of our houses, girls are. So these are, there are so many non-traditional gender roles which are and those who follow these non-traditional gender roles, they are believe that an individual's behavior is not or should not be determined solely by her sex, which is much more I would say important in 21st century. That yes, a gender role cannot, no one can define that what our identity is by the kind of work we do, or anything that. So here it is very important, and this is called non-traditional gender orientation. Individuals with non-traditional gender role orientation are more likely to believe in the value of egalitarian relationship between men and women and in the power of individual human beings to determine what roles they wish to occupy and the extent to which these roles are or should be associated with their sex. Now, when I say that, these important, it is very important to understand that nowadays we are on a verge of changing our society. We are seeing a lot of shift in the gender roles. We keep playing different gender roles which are not prescribed traditionally by the society. So somewhere we can see that though we have shift in the gender roles, but still it will take time to eliminate the gender roles, traditional gender roles. But yes, we are glad that the gender roles are not the most important element to define anyone's gender or their gender identity. It's not part of their gender identity unless and until you consider it that okay, the kind of work you do is part of your identity. It proves that you belong to particular gender. With this, actually, I would end here my talk. Yes, I'm open for if audience have any questions, anything. I'm open for that.
Well, thank you so much. That was a power pack presentation, I would say.
Thank you.
Very relatable as we have been talking on this. It's a debatable topic, as you can say. And yes, this is something like your gender determination, how to live your life. We are taught somewhere from our throughout our whole existence. When we are told how to act and dress, like if
Yeah.
you're a girl or a boy, and especially starting from your family, it becomes difficult for people to understand. Initially, when we are kids, when we are small, until you actually understand and get to know what it is. This gender expectation are still around today, and
Yeah.
although we are progressing, I think, but still there's a long way to go. And as you said, I think gender equality is a human fight, not a female fight or a male fight, as said
Yeah.
by Frida Pinto.
Yeah, actually, that's what exactly I'm trying to, I was trying to make my point that, gender, when we talk about gender, it's just umbrella term. It's not about, fighting for women, fighting for men. It's like, you are fighting for what your identity as a human being. So let's break this shackle and get out of it.
Because it's still used to refer the behaviors, as you said, the feelings, how you're feeling. And a very famous one, that men cannot cry. Mard ko dard nahi hota. They don't cry, they cannot cry. And
Yeah.
women, I think the very relatable example, I would say, the night shift jobs, for them, they're not allowed to do that. Men can.
Yeah, actually, that's what I'm,
So
we are like, you cannot have a night shift job because that is not your role. You cannot go out. Still, we have, though, it's changing. You see a
it's
lot of
changing.
girl working out, but still, it's like, it's
Yes.
there in the society. Still.
Yes, we are progressing. As I said, we are progressing at a speed, I think, but still there's a long way to go. And very valid points in your presentation. Masculine and feminine are not connected to male or female.
Yeah.
And the important part is the roles that are set in the society, the gender roles are set. We can unlearn and relearn them instead of following the same old traditional ones. And we can bring equality where we can from the school, as I said, schools are the key positions. Schools are at the key positions, at the key sites where the educators can uniquely position to show students they have a choice when it comes to forming their own identity. And to highlight the illusions and traps the society has laid before them from the very beginning of their lives. It's time to have the gender equality the place it deserves in our curriculum also, with so many other ways. And yeah, parents, they play a very important role where they can teach their kids about equality
Yeah.
and how we can actually change their attitudes. So
Yeah.
yes, I think very informative session, very inspiring, and I don't see any questions as such, but people have thoroughly enjoyed. So I am in the list. I was so much into
Thank
your
you so
presentation,
much.
and Yes, thank you so very much for joining us
Thank
today
you.
and talking on this. I hope the teachers, the educators, or whoever is watching will take so many things from the session. There are so many takeaways actually for everyone. And yes, I can see that comments are coming on and on. The comment section
Even
is
I can see
bombarded.
that. I'm glad that
So,
the audience liked it, because when you talk about gender, you have a lot of notion, that it is such a debatable and such a, it's, you will have variations of thoughts. So I was a
right.
bit skeptical about it, doing about it, but yeah, I'm glad that you liked it and the audience liked it, and yes, I'm really happy to be on this
We are
platform.
changing. We all can change. Together, we can. We are on it. And one day for sure, we will.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yes, with this note, I think we should keep going with it. But here we need to come to an end with the session. So, yes, thank you again on behalf of our entire team. And thank you, viewers, for joining in. In case you have any questions, you can post here in the comment section. And Mr. Radha will definitely try to answer them as
Though,
and when possible.
yeah, I'll answer them later on also. Though for those who are like still
Yes.
in the process of questioning, I'll answer them definitely. Thank you, Prerna, and thank
Fine.
you the whole
Thank you.
organization for bringing me on the platform. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all ours, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And yes, keep going. Just be positive and don't forget to watch our detox on our page. Dear viewers, also detox initiative by Global Dream Literacy. So don't forget to watch them also, and also do share and like this presentation, and as much as you can share with your friends. So yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Take
Thank
care.
you. Yeah, sure. I'll leave now. Thank you.
Yeah.